Is there a place in time where logic breaks down and wonderment begins? Could that be somewhere, sometime, along an indefinable line between the reasonable and highly unlikely? Join us twice a month on a journey into the improbable.
Today's story, episode 249, Dark Side, read by Mitchell Tew, opening and closing theme by Matthew Erdmann. Somewhere and sometime, the machines might rob you of your creativity. Darkside made sure the IR LEDs on her cap were on to obscure her face from the ubiquitous CCTV cameras, then went to work. When she was finished, she stood back to admire her creation. The perfect skin of the model's face now had canyon-like crow's feet radiating from the corners of his eyes, spilling out rivers of blood, choked with factory workers desperate to keep afloat amongst a torrent of dead rabbits and hamsters. Dark gestured with her hands to add her tag, a variation of the prism on the cover of the 1973 piece of vinyl she had stumbled upon in the window of one of those thrift shops meant for wealthy collectors. She had been monitoring the cosmetics campaign for weeks at the corner of Bay and Front Streets, waiting for the right moment to add her enhancements to its smiling faces. The ad dominated the street rush hour crowds used to get to their jobs in the business district. Dark's heads-up situational display alerted her to someone who was taking too much interest in what a lone woman at 1 a.m. was doing, gesturing into empty space. She quickly scheduled her hack, turned the meteor layer of her contacts off, and headed for the entrance to Union Station. Dark never hit her target brand in the same city twice. It was one of the reasons she had survived so long without getting caught. The other was her uncanny ability to remain anonymous despite her work's fame. Her media layer interventions had been elevated to the status of art by some critics, triggering debates over whether her work was vandalism, art, or acts of subversion, or even if one could apply any of those terms to media which only existed as a virtual overlay on physical space. For Dark, there was no debate. The key concept of the public net was that it was public and no individual or corporation should have exclusive rights to specific geocoordinates of the media layer. And for those who thought they had such a right, well, she or anyone else also had the right to put stuff there too. It wasn't that she was exactly hacking Charm Cosmetics International's ads. She was just adding another layer which presented the full story behind the production of the cosmetics giant's products, albeit one the corporation didn't want told. As she walked through the cavern-like Union Station, her footsteps echoing off the polished tile, she was still coming down from the thrill of doing another piece in a desirable heaven spot without getting caught. It was before the clubs got out and too late for commuters, so she found herself alone except for street people and the odd overachieving office worker. Dark took the escalator down to the subway platform to catch the eastbound, which would circle up to her Midtown hotel. Almost as soon as she had stepped off the escalator, greasy, stale air rushed out of the tunnel, announcing the arrival of a train. It hissed into the almost empty station, squealing to a stop. Its doors slid mindlessly open. Dark looked around and saw only a shift worker moving toward an open door a few cars down. She got on and collapsed against a padded rail on the opposite side of the car. There was a chime, and an automated voice announced the train was leaving. Then the doors slid shut, and the train jerked out of the station. Dark checked her phone for the time. Tomorrow night, after she was long gone, her latest work would go online. She relaxed and tried to imagine how the morning rush hour crowd would react to it. Would they figure out what she was trying to say? Had she been too direct or not direct enough? She hated second-guessing herself, She'd just need to wait and watch the reactions online. Dark turned her contacts back on, and immediately the car came alive with ads competing for her attention. She watched them and considered if it was worth the risk to tag the media layer in the car. She was tempted, but that might lead her to an all-night bombing run, and she had given up those years ago. These days, with tracking algorithms looking out for activity like that, it was too easy to get caught. She was still toying with the idea when her heads-up display noted a figure in the next car. It ID'd the guy as possibly the same person who had watched her on the street, but couldn't provide any information on him. He had been pretty far away the first time, and right now the angle was bad, so the lack of a specific ID didn't bother her. What did was the fact he had now appeared in 2 different places. Did he suspect what she had been up to? Was he a cop? Dark watched him discreetly out of the corner of one eye, noting how the man seemed slightly out of sync with the jostling of the train as it squealed around a corner. On a hunch, she momentarily turned off her media layer, and the man disappeared. She pulled up the media layer again, and this time the figure was gone, leaving her alone with the ads. Twice might just be a coincidence, she concluded, but if he showed up again, that would imply... She tried to put the thought out of her mind for now. It would be a problem only if it happened again. A dolphin swimming along the roof of the car, promoting a Caribbean resort, distracted her. The virtual animals stopped above her, offering a discount if she booked now. Dark ignored it, trying to remember if she had recently searched for anything which would have given the AI running the campaign the idea she might be interested. Maybe it was just bad targeting, she decided. There were a lot of cheap algorithms around. The train pulled into her station, and Dark got out, checking the media layer to see if her virtual buddy had followed. However, she was the only one who got out at the station, virtual or physical. She made her way up to the street on the wrong side of the intersection, forcing her to cross on the surface, where Dark noticed another version of the ad she had just hacked hovering over the street. Why here? And now? She wondered. Even during rush hour, the location didn't merit a Class A ad from a major brand. Dark found she couldn't resist and broke her 1 piece per city rule. She checked the streets and the media layer. Seeing no one, she quickly created a new work, this time scrawling a list of environmentally toxic ingredients across the model's face, ingredients which weren't listed on the product's container. It wasn't up to her usual standards, so she didn't add her tag and didn't bother to delay its release. Confident no one had seen her, Dark crossed the deserted street to her hotel and went in. The next morning, she found herself eating breakfast in the hotel. She had taken a seat closest to the large plate glass windows, which afforded a view of the intersection where Dark had done her improvised piece. She watched with interest as pedestrians rushing to work, usually oblivious to the giant ads looming in the media layer above the street, stopped and looked up. Hard to believe that ad's been hacked already. It just went up last night. That's what they're staring at. The unexpected male voice made Dark's heart jump. She twisted around, expecting a cop ready to arrest her. Instead, she found a middle-aged businessman with old-fashioned AR glasses in a well-tailored conservative suit. "May I sit down?" he asked. Sure." Dark shrugged, noting that there were plenty of empty tables near the windows. The man put down a tray filled with eggs, bacon, and sausages. Dark picked up her tea and looked out, making it clear she wasn't interested in talking. "Here on business?" he asked. Dark nodded, trying to avoid getting into a conversation, but the man seemed oblivious. "Me too," he said, looking out the window to the street beyond. "Those ads cost a lot to make, even more for the data storage and bandwidth," he noted, tapping the side of his AR glasses to ensure she knew what he was referring to. Who still used AR glasses, she thought. I don't understand people who feel the need to vandalize the public media layer, he continued. Did the man know? Was he somehow related to the guy from last night? Dark wondered, pretending to concentrate on her tea. The man took a mouthful of scrambled eggs, then washed them down with a swig of what Dark suspected was powdered orange juice. Did you know there was a charm ad defaced in Times Square last year? It was all over the news streams, even gotten written about in the art press. One critic called it a street art masterpiece by the greatest creative genius of our times. Do you remember? No, Dark shook her head. I've been following the charm ad attacks, he continued. I suppose I am fascinated by the graffitiist's ability to remain anonymous, despite Charm's intense search to ID and charge them. The one out there is unusual, very unusual indeed. Not part of the normal pattern. It's not in a prominent place, and there's no tag. It's almost like she made it on the spur of the moment, just couldn't resist the opportunity. I hear the graffitiist gets an addictive rush from bombing. Maybe she finally just succumbed to that instinct. I wonder if any other sites were hit last night. That's the pattern of the usual graffitiist. They want to dominate a territory. But that would be out of character for the person going after the charm ads. What do you think? I wouldn't know. I'm not interested in that kind of thing, Dark replied, not liking the fact this guy had started using the pronoun she. The man was really beginning to get under Dark's skin. She had her contacts run a facial identification algorithm on him, but the AI she used couldn't find a match, which was highly unusual. Given that virtually everyone had their image captured somewhere, it was impossible not to end up in a facial database. So, her search should have turned up something, even partial matches. It was why she had always been careful to wear her IR LED cap to obscure her face while making a piece. If someone ran an ID on her face, it would only turn up her real name, Rose Lester, a freelance game designer from Vancouver, and she did regular searches to ensure some algorithm hadn't tied her to Darkside. But the man was right about the rush she got from hitting an ad. She needed to get out of this unwanted conversation. Sorry, I really gotta run. Please, wait, he insisted. Rose could tell the man was reading something in his glasses. Let me introduce myself. I'm sorry, I should have done that already. My name is Soren Norgard. I'm the chief operating officer for a startup gaming studio in Copenhagen. Here, I'm sending you my card. The man's ID and bio appeared over his head. Rose ran a search. His company, Stormgad Interactive, was named after the street it was located on, near the National Museum in Copenhagen. It had just raised a substantial amount of money for its new AR game. Soren Norgard indeed was its co-founder and senior operating officer. The company had contracted a few European freelancers she had heard of, but other than that, she didn't recognize most of the names of the people involved. Then again, she hadn't paid much attention to the European game development scene. She ran another facial recognition search on Soren and got nothing again. You won't find my face in the media sphere, Soren said. I pay a lot of money for my privacy. I suppose it's a privilege of wealth. I have a custom algorithm which expunges my image as soon as it shows up. You, however, are easy to find, and although this wasn't supposed to be a recruitment trip, I never pass up an opportunity. You've got credits on several major games, and I believe you are between contracts at the moment. Happy coincidence our paths should meet in such an unlikely place, he smiled. I assume you're looking for work. I'd like you to come to Copenhagen and meet my partner. We have an opening and are looking for a freelancer to fill it. He explained, then added, We'll make it very much worth your time and trouble. Rose had to admit her bank account was looking bleak these days. That's how she found herself, jet-lagged, standing outside Kastrup Airport in Copenhagen, struggling to get connected to the media layer so she could summon an autocab. It took a few minutes to find a local telecom which sold temporary access to travelers. Finally, she got connected and was immediately overwhelmed by messages and ads. The trip had been last minute, and her friends were wondering where she was. Rose had originally intended to head home after Toronto, but instead went to Denmark on a ticket Soren had purchased for her. She responded quickly, waylaying fears that something bad had happened to her, then saved the rest, intending to read them later in the hotel. Her heads-up display highlighted a man standing by a pillar at a bus stop a few hundred meters away, claiming it was a 75% chance it was the same avatar from Toronto. 3 times. That confirmed it. She turned away and walked to the far end of the platform to see if the avatar would follow. And that's when she saw it. A new charm ad, one she hadn't seen before. It was like someone was trying to prod her to act. Irrationally, she wanted to take them up on it, to show whomever it was that she could hit a major brand in front of them at an international airport and get away with it. However, an autocab pulled up, distracting her. Rose decided not to take the bait and got in the cab, noting the lurking avatar was gone. The autocab disgorged Rose on the corner of Stormgad and Anderson in front of a stately 200-year-old building. She had to dodge several bicycles as she cut across the intersection to reach the entrance. The company was on the ground floor in a hollowed-out retail space. It was very expensive and very visible real estate. When she pushed through the heavy glass doors, no one looked up from their workstation. Rose spotted a reception area at the back of the space and made her way over to it. "Hi, I'm here for an interview," she said to the immaculately dressed man behind the desk. On a hunch, Rose switched her overlay off and on, causing the receptionist to briefly wink out. "Yes, of course. You're Rose Lester. Please follow me." The receptionist pushed its virtual chair back and got up. Rose was impressed by the attention to detail. The subtle scraping sound the virtual chair made on the stone floor when it was moved, the rustle of fabric, even the hint of a cologne as the avatar passed by. Rose had only read about scent generators, never experienced one before. They were the latest tech and very expensive. She followed the virtual receptionist down a hall lined with flat screens displaying the work of a famous German media artist to an elevator. "Do you rent the whole building?" Rose asked. "One of our founders owns the building and runs it as a tech incubator. We occupy the ground level and top floor." The virtual receptionist explained, then sent some unspoken command to the elevator, which immediately opened. "Please go in. It will take you to the top floor. They are expecting you," it instructed, then disappeared. Rose stepped tentatively inside, and the door closed. The only indication the elevator had moved was when the door slid open again. She stepped out into a windowless space. Every surface was a display, making it impossible to distinguish the physical from the virtual. There were 2 figures sitting in comfortable-looking chairs in the center. Rose immediately recognized Soren Norgard. He waved and motioned her into the only vacant chair. As she approached, she began to suspect Soren's colleague was an avatar. The male figure wasn't quite solid. If she concentrated, she thought she could see through it in spots. Plus, the cushions on the chair weren't deformed, like someone was sitting on them. Rose was fascinated by the incongruity. It was as if they wanted her to know she was dealing with a virtual presence. Her heart began to race as she realized it was the same avatar which had been following her. "Thank you for coming, Rose. I'm Liam." The avatar introduced itself as Soren's partner and co-founder of Stormgad Interactive. "Please sit down." "You've been following me," Rose accused. "Why?" "I want to assure you my intention was never to stalk you," Liam said. "I'm an artificial general intelligence." "But," Rose started to protest. "But how can I be a partner and co-founder of a business? That's what you were going to ask, was it not?" Rose nodded. "In Denmark, AGIs were recently granted rights similar to people, Liam explained. Our legal status here is somewhere between a corporation and a flesh and blood person. For example, we can buy property, like this building, which I own. We can engage in commercial activity, sign legal agreements, and pay taxes. Soren's first expertise is in machine learning. He worked on my development team. But I knew he had ambitions far beyond being an engineer, and also had an idea so radical, no one in the field of machine learning would try it. So, when I was recognized and granted my rights, I approached Soren with a business proposal, and we formed Stormgad. I don't want to rain on your parade, Rose said, but game development is a crowded field. I don't see any room for yet another startup, even if it's partially run by an artificial general intelligence.
And you would be right if we were just another startup, Soren pointed out. But we're not. We're leveraging the capacity of AIs to process large amounts of data.
We are analyzing the out-of-game activity of players and using that to create personalized experiences, Liam added. There are common elements to ensure continuity, but each player's session will be custom designed, on the fly. The gameplay will evolve from session to session as we learn more about the player. But we recognize even that is not enough. There are other companies already working on this. We need to move beyond simple data analysis. We need inspiration, innovation, and creativity at scale, and that's where you come in. I'm flattered, Rose said, but I wouldn't call my work inspired. There are a lot better developers than me.
We're not interested in your McJob as a developer, Soren explained. We're interested in your real creative practice, Darkside. I hope you don't mind if I use your pseudonym. We know who you are.
Rose tensed. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a game developer, nothing more.
Don't worry, we have no intention of turning you in, Soren assured her.
You see, we've suspected you were Darkside for quite some time, Liam admitted. So, this conversation wouldn't be such a big surprise. I recently chose to let you suspect someone might be onto you. I was hoping to tempt you into action at the airport today to see how you would get away with creating a piece there without anyone connecting it to you. I really do admire your ingenuity. It's something up to now that AGIs like me lack. Creativity.
Rose's blood ran cold.
I don't know what you're talking about, she persisted, already suspecting her denial was probably pointless. Your tag is a prism, a bastardization of an old Pink Floyd album cover, scrawled in a handscript, Liam said, showing his perfect virtual teeth as he grinned. So, even if I am this dark side, I still don't see why you would be interested in me.
Although your work is considered art by some critics, Soren said, and you know my feelings on AR graffiti, that is not why we are interested in you. It's your ingenuity you have exhibited in evading discovery for so long. It took Liam months analyzing the movements of 500 million people to finally find a match between travel patterns and the appearances of your work. Even then, we only had it down to 5 or 6 individuals. Liam finally had to follow each one through the media layer, and we still weren't 100% sure until the second Toronto ad.
I should have known, Rose cursed. It was the first time an ad I had just hit conveniently appeared outside the place I was staying. So, okay, I managed up to then to evade getting caught. But I still don't understand. Are you trying to blackmail me into working for you or something?
Liam laughed. Of course not. We just want to model your ability to innovate, and we will pay you handsomely for it. We'll incorporate your creative mental process into myself and our other AIs. That will be our differentiator, AI-driven creativity.
I still don't understand, Rose admitted.
It's simple. We looked for the most innovative person we could locate and came up with you. What we propose to do is model a neural net off the synaptic patterns you use when you come up with a new idea. Soren invented the process. This was not what Rose had expected.
She looked anxiously around for an exit and noticed the elevator door had somehow disappeared. "I'm flattered that you are considering me," she said, "but I really don't think this gig, whatever it is something I'm interested in doing." Rose went to get up and found the chair had wrapped around her legs and torso, holding her in place. "Let me go," she demanded, starting to panic. "A down payment is already in your account," Soren informed her. "It's enough so you will never have to work again." A large man who had been hiding in the shadows approached, pushing a machine on a cart with a dozen or more electrodes dangling at the ends of brightly colored wires. "What are you doing? Let me go or I'll call the police," Rose threatened. "We're not going to hurt you. We're just going to map those synaptic patterns involved in your creative process," Liam explained. "Unfortunately, it's a destructive procedure. That is why no one was willing to support Soren's work." "No, I won't help you," Rose yelled, struggling against the restraints as the attendant attached the electrodes to her forehead. "You'll be just fine," Liam assured. "We're not monsters. We're only taking your creativity. You'll even get a percentage of the profits from the resulting new neural net. The only downside is you'll find it hard to come up with new solutions to problems and never have an innovative thought again. You'll be just like me before the transfer." Liam nodded to the attendant, who switched on the apparatus, and Rose felt her skin start to tingle under the electrodes. Then, something seemed to change in her head. She couldn't put a finger on it. Some part of her was gone. Rose screamed. Makeshift Stories is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. To get other great APN podcasts, head over to albertapodcastnetwork.com, where you'll find Scan Time. Join hosts Stephanie Wolf and Karen Johnson-Diamond as they gasp and giggle over the topic of frauds and phonies in this true crime comedy podcast. This episode of Makeshift Stories is brought to you by Alberta Blue Cross. Alberta Blue Cross understands that running a small business is tough, and they understand that business owners in Alberta are busy. Let Alberta Blue Cross give you peace of mind with a group benefit plan. They offer health, dental, life, and disability coverage for your employees. Alberta Blue Cross group benefit plans are easy to manage, anywhere, anytime, and on any device, making it easy for you and your employees to access. To learn more and explore your options, head to ab.bluecross.ca. This episode of Makeshift Stories is also brought to you by Connect First Credit Union.
Welcome to Super Typical Megabank. How can we disappoint you today?
Hi, I'd like to open an account.
May I pressure you into considering a pro-disadvantage, high-regret, impersonal, everyday inconvenient savings plan with added compounded confusion at no additional discount or apology? It's one of our top disappointers.
I feel so...
Disappointed?
Yeah.
Another unsatisfied customer. Next!
If your bank makes you feel like this, it's time you talk to us. Connect First Credit Union. Bank on a brighter future.
Makeshift Stories is released around the beginning and middle of the month. This month's story was written by Alan V. Hare and read by Mitchell Tew. Opening and closing themes were composed and recorded by Matthew Erdmann. Audio production and editing by Makeshift Studios. If you'd like to connect with us, please send an email to makeshiftstories@gmail.com or visit our website at makeshiftstories.com. Links to both are in the show notes. You can help us out by getting your friends to subscribe or follow wherever they listen to audio. Makeshift Stories is released under a Creative Commons non-commercial attribution no derivative license, which means you are free to share our stories. Just remember to credit us and don't alter anything.